Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to 90-Day Fiancé latest news. The room in the hospital was overly white. Not enough germs. The soft ivory walls hummed under the fluorescent light above. Every surface shone clean yet empty. A place that hasn't changed in a long time. A place that didn't seem to care at all about human pain. Annie Sewin sat in the plastic chair next to the newborn crib, her back slightly bowed and her arms wrapped around her knees. Her face was still beautiful, but it seemed drawn, like a mask of fear, tiredness, and mother pain. She hadn't slept in over 36 hours. The clock on the wall chimed steadily, like a metronome, counting down the time her kid was in a fragile state between getting better and getting worse. Their daughter, Minthirarat, was in the hospital bassinet. Her 4-month-old frame was dwarfed by tubes, sensors, and the whirring, repetitive hiss of an oxygen machine. The cannula curled over her little cheekbones, and the plastic pushed against her nose like an unwanted guest. Her breathing was weak and slow, and the rise and fall of her chest was mechanical and unnatural. It started 3 days ago. A cough. At first, light. Not much more than a tickle at night. Then being fussy. After that, a fever. Annie had phoned the doctor for kids, who offered her instructions and comfort. But by the next morning, Minthira was wheezing, which is a tight, scratchy sound that made Annie's lungs feel like they were going to burst the first time she heard it. David had been watching her with worry, but calm until their baby stopped breathing for 5 or 6 seconds, and then started again. It was the kind of quiet that parents could never forget. That quiet had changed everything. He drove them to the ER at breakneck speed, running red lights and honking at every car in the way. Annie sat in the back seat with Minthira limp in her arms, crying and praying in Thai between gasps of fear. The machines were now doing what her little body couldn't accomplish on its own anymore, hours and hours later. RSV, the virus that causes respiratory syncytial virus. A sickness that most adults would get over in a few days. But it was different for babies, especially newborns. Risky, even dangerous. Annie reached out and caressed Minthira's foot with her shaking finger. The tiniest, most delicate part of her child's anatomy. She couldn't bring herself to touch her face. Not with the mask on. She said in Thai, her voice faint. "Take a breath for Mommy. You can do it. You are so strong." David had been standing at the window with his arms crossed over his chest for the past hour. Friends, family, and fans sent him messages on his phone, but he didn't look. Could not. At this moment, the world outside this chamber didn't exist. The heart monitor was the only sound. The sound of air hissing. The quiet that hurt and echoed. Finally, he turned, walked up to Annie, and knelt down next to her. He put his hand in hers. Their fingers were intertwined and held on. "We're here," he remarked in a hushed voice. "She knows we're here." Annie's voice broke as she said, "She's so small. She's only a baby. It's not right." He put his forehead on hers. "I know." They didn't talk for a long time. The sounds around them were mechanical and clinical. Sometimes the faint footfall of a nurse or the rustling of a clipboard would break the silence. After that, the door opened. Dr. Mendelsohn came in wearing a neat but wrinkled white coat. He seemed exhausted but kind. He was calm, the type of calm that comes with being on the border of life and death too many times. After looking at the monitors, he stated, "She's stable. Still breathing but staying steady. That's great news." "Will she?" Annie didn't finish what she was saying. Couldn't. The doctor sat down on a chair. "It's always serious when RSV is in babies. But the fact that her oxygen levels are stable is a good sign. We're giving her antiviral drugs. Water. She has all the benefits we can provide her. It will take time, and there may be problems along the way, but I'm cautiously hopeful." Annie nodded without thinking. David said in a low voice, "So she'll be okay?" The tone of Dr. Mendelsohn's voice changed. "I think she will. It wasn't a promise, but it was hope. Sometimes all you had was hope." The days all looked the same. Light faded into night, and night faded into day. Annie and David hardly ever left the room. Nurses came and went. A delicate routine began to form, one that didn't really bring comfort, but did have a beat. Annie would carefully clean Minthira's face with a warm cloth every morning. She sang quietly in Thai and whispered lullabies. She was tired, so her voice cracked, but she still sang. The songs weren't simply for Minthira, they were also for her. To remember her own youth in Thailand. for the strength of the women who had come before her. David wrote in a journal. He wrote letters to their daughter, so she would remember this when she became older. He wrote to deal with his remorse and powerlessness, to remind himself that he was a father right now. He wrote stories on every page. The night they first heard that Annie was pregnant was a calm night at home. The Thai food they ordered and the movie they stopped halfway through when she showed him the positive result. He cried without any embarrassment. He wrote, "I didn't know my heart could grow. But it did. And now I can't breathe when you can't." Nurses did little things for them. More blankets. Coffee. Words that didn't promise miracles, but did pledge to be there. Annie got a Thai snack from a nearby store from one of the nurses, Jamila. Elijah, on the other hand, spent 20 minutes going over every line on the monitor so David would feel more in charge. The world beyond their room, on the other hand, did. Annie's post of the picture, in which Minthyra's little hand wrapped around her finger, tubes and all, went viral. People who saw 90 Day Fiancé flooded the comments with prayers. Hashtags were popular. People who didn't know each other uploaded movies of themselves lighting candles and telling anecdotes about how they survived RSV. A monk in Chiang Mai gave out a chant for healing. A priest in Arizona talked about Minthyra during Massachusetts Muslims and Jews wrote Amin and Baruch Hashem in the comments. For a short time, in a world that is getting more and more divided, people came together for one reason, a single child. Minthyra's oxygen level dropped quickly on day 5. The alarms went off. Annie also yelled. Doctors came in quickly. Nurses yelled orders. David was hauled back toward the corridor and had to observe through the glass. Annie wouldn't go. She stood still next to the crib, shaking and muttering through her chattering teeth as they changed the wiring and let in more air. Time went by. It felt like hours. Then things settled down. Annie fell into a chair. David sat next to her and rubbed her back without saying anything. There was nothing to say. David told Annie a story he had never told anybody else during the quiet times that followed. "Before we got married," he remarked in a sad voice, "I almost gave up. Before you answered yes, I sat by the river in Thailand one night and questioned God if I was supposed to be alone." She stared at him with wide eyes. "I didn't think love was for me. And then you came along, and it was like the lights came on. I had no idea how terribly I had been walking in the dark." Annie took his hand. She muttered, "I'm not letting go." "Me too." And so it went on. 6th day. A little better. The 7th day. A peaceful morning. Vital signs are stable. Day 8. For a short time, a nurse took off the oxygen cannula. Minthyra took a breath. All by herself. For the first time in a few days. It wasn't strong, but it was hers. Annie cried. Not out of fear, but out of relief. The kind of relief that makes your bones feel like they're going to break. The doctors smiled. The nurses clapped. David knelt down. They were still in the woods, but the light was different. The air smelled like morning. This gossip is over. If you liked the video, then give your opinion in the comment box and stay with us by subscribing the channel. Thank you.